The firmament. What does Zecharia Sitchin, who wrote many books on the Anunnaki, say about the firmament? Well, he actually says that he believes it's the asteroid belt, which is the remnants of a broken up planet called Tiamat, and it's also called Hammer Bracelet, which is the asteroid belt as well. So he's saying the firmament is the asteroid belt, but I'm not 100% convinced on that. Whenever I read anything to do with the firmament, it comes across that it's the layer between Earth and space. Now, the reason I say that is because when you look at the people that have said that they've seen the firmament, you realise that they would have had to have seen it, which means they would have had to have flown in a craft. And that's not to say that there wasn't obviously spaceships with the Anunnaki, but even Egyptian people talked about the firmament. So I think it is the layer between space, heaven, space and Earth. Our true history, which is me, has finally been debunked by the only person that could probably debunk me, and that's me. And the reason why I say that is because I've been saying for the longest time that the Neanderthals are the hominid species that the Anunnaki used to genetically create the Homo sapien. So in other words, the Anunnaki used a hominid, and I've been saying, based on the ancient text, the closest it would be Neanderthal. And of course, people say I'm wrong because no Neanderthals were in Africa, which is where the Anunnaki were doing their creations. Now, a new study, this is why I say partly debunked, because turns out here, it says, researchers at Princeton University present evidence of Neanderthal ancestry in African populations too. And its origin provides new insights into the human history. So, is our true history once again right? Do you go to heaven when you die? Well, God wouldn't have forgot to tell the first civilization that could read or write, would he, in Sumeria? Well, yeah. So let's be honest, heaven was space, as translations read. But the Sumerians, the first civilized race, was basically told about Ker, which was ruled by the goddess Ereshkigal, and it was classed as the underworld. And there she would judge whether or not someone's life was good or not. Now, let's have a look at who Ereshkigal is. Turns out Ereshkigal is the granddaughter of Enlil. Enlil being the Anunnaki that came here to Earth. So yes, she was an Anunnaki. So she was the mistress of the lower world, which was hell, southern Africa. So she was in charge of that. So there you go. Heaven, not so much. It's actually space. Once again, our true history is going to show you something that you will never find anywhere else. So is there really a hell? So if you watch my previous video, I talk about heaven, where the Sumerians had no idea about heaven, going to heaven after dying, and that's because heaven was space. So this is something new that you won't know. So using this text here just as an example, Lord Gilgamesh was basically upset because he was half human and he was going to die a lot sooner than the Anunnaki would. But what actually happens is they build funeral statues of people in advance, and they actually leave them in the temples of the gods, ready for whenever someone dies. And Ereshkigal, if you watch my previous video, she is in charge of whether or not those statues are worthy of being remembered. So it's not an afterlife in hell, it's just statues. Who changed the plural to single in the Bible? My guess, educated, is that it was the Anunnaki offspring, the demigods. When they built the Vatican City, they would have had the power to have changed it from gods to God. My thoughts on religious people, actually. Most, I find, think that Hebrew is the oldest language when we know it's not. They seem to stick together. If praising God, for example, on a live chat, there's many thousands of viewers, but if you're debating God, there's hardly any. When questioned about things, they seem to just keep quoting passages from the Bible instead of actually understanding the question they've been asked. Only 4 or 5 people since I've been doing this for 2 years, even though I've got 40 years of research, have actually wanted to learn about our older history. So well done to those 4 or 5. When I get told Jesus this and Jesus that, I asked about the sons of God, in other words, Jesus' brothers that stole human women. They don't want to reply. They also don't actually get upset, unlike other groups. These remain calm.